And welcome everyone to the Community IT webinar of how to use AI tools safely at nonprofits. If you don't know the difference between using a freemium tool like Chatgpt or logging on to a more private enterprise tool at your organization like Copilot if you're using Microsoft, or Gemini if you're using Google Workspace, this webinar is really going to clarify that for you. We hear a lot about make sure not to share your sensitive data with the AI learning models, but how do you know that you're using them safely? How do you check the terms and conditions? Where do you begin? Today, our cybersecurity expert, Matt Eshleman, is going to demystify the enterprise AI and share some tips on how to create an organizational AI policy, how to share knowledge, how to do staff training, so all you and all of your colleagues are using AI in the most secure way possible. My name is Carolyn Woodard. I'm the Outreach Director for Community IT. I'm going to be the moderator today. But first, I'm going to go over our learning objectives. So by the end of the session today, we hope that you will learn the difference between enterprise or subscription AI and the more freemium, the free AI tools like ChatGPT, if you just Google it and go to the website. We're going to go over accessing Microsoft Copilot and Google Workspace Gemini tools at the organizational level. We're going to review IT policy guidelines and provide some training and knowledge sharing tips. If you have some tips, something that you're doing at your organization that's working, I'm going to have a chance for you to share that with us later. If you're looking for more information on AI topics, we just started a midweek nonprofit AI podcast where we give you 10 to 15 minutes of news and resources weekly. If you subscribe to our regular podcast, the Technology Topics podcast, you'll get that in your feed on Tuesdays and our regular Friday podcast on Fridays. On Friday, we have lots of different nonprofit IT topics. We chat with guests. We also have some other recorded webinars, which you can access on our site, communityit.com, covering things like creating an ethical AI framework for your organization, AI governance. We did an amazing webinar last summer with Brenda Foster on how to use AI kind of in general. We have a downloadable AI acceptable use policy template that you can use if you're working on your policy for your organization. So we have a lot of those kind of bigger ethical questions in other resources. Today, we're really going to focus on this specific question that we get a lot, which is how do you know if you're using your AI tools safely? And with that, Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Great. Well, thanks for that introduction, Carolyn. It's great to be here with you, and I'm looking forward to talking about adopting AI in your organization and kind of sharing some of those tips and tricks and getting under the hood a little bit. As Carolyn mentioned, I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Community IT, and I am pleased that I just celebrated 4 years officially full time with Community IT, and so get to do a lot of different things, play a lot of different roles, and I'm really excited about this topic in particular.
And you have so much experience, so I'm really happy that you're here with us too, Matt, to answer our questions. Before we get started with Matt, if you're not familiar with Community IT, I want to tell you just a little bit about us. We are a 100% employee-owned managed services provider. We provide outsourced IT support. We work exclusively with nonprofit organizations, and our mission is to help nonprofits accomplish their missions through the effective use of technology. We are big fans of what well-managed IT can do for your nonprofit. We serve nonprofits across the United States. We've been doing this for 25 years. This is our 25-year anniversary. We are technology experts and are consistently given an MSP 501 recognition for being a top MSP, which is an honor we received again in 2025. And we believe that we're the only MSP on the list that serves nonprofits exclusively. I want to remind everyone that for these presentations, Community IT is vendor agnostic. We only make recommendations to our clients and only based on their specific business needs. We never try to get a client into a product because we get an incentive or a benefit from it. We do consider ourselves a best of breed IT provider, so it's our job to know the landscape, what tools are available, reputable, and widely used. And we make recommendations on that basis for our clients based on their business needs, priorities, and budget. We're going to talk about two big nonprofit IT stacks that everyone uses, not just nonprofits, Microsoft and Google today, but that is because a lot of nonprofits are using them. We got a lot of good questions at registration, so we're going to try and answer as many of those as we can. But anything we can't get to, please join us and Matt today on in our community on Reddit at r/nonprofit IT management after the webinar for about 30 minutes. And Matt also pops in once a week or so to answer any other questions that come in, so you can take advantage of that. And a little bit more about us. Our mission, as I said, is to create value for the nonprofit sector through well-managed IT. We also identify four key values as employee owners that define our company: trust, knowledge, service, and balance. We seek always to treat people with respect and fairness. We seek to empower our staff, clients, and sector to understand and use technology effectively, to be helpful with our talents, and we recognize that the health of our communities is vital to our well-being and that work is only a part of our lives. All right, as we usually do, I'm going to start out with a poll. We just want to get a feel for your comfort level with AI tools. So your options are one, completely uncomfortable or unfamiliar with most tools. Two, somewhat uncomfortable. We use a few popular tools occasionally. Three is the neutral, neither uncomfortable or comfortable, kind of average use. Four is somewhat comfortable. I use a few AI tools daily. And five is completely comfortable. I use a lot of these tools a lot of the time. My colleagues ask me how to use them, to teach them how. And the sixth option is not applicable or other. And Matt, can you see the results?
Yes, I can. I always like it's like a big reveal. You got the
Uh-huh.
drum roll because I can't see it as it's coming in. So
All right,
it's
so
a
can you go
it's a
ahead and
big
share
surprise.
it with
So
us? How
yes. So in terms of the folks that are responding today, about 12% are completely uncomfortable, unfamiliar, haven't really done much at all. Which maybe on the flip side, right, about 9% of the respondents are completely comfortable and use it a lot, and they're really the resource that people in their organization go to. So we kind of have those ends, and then in the middle, we have about 29% of folks are somewhat uncomfortable. Maybe they use some of the tools occasionally. 16% are neither uncomfortable, like right right in the middle, and then we have a bigger bump there on the folks that are somewhat comfortable using those AI tools daily. So kind of an interesting distribution in terms of the respondents here. So we've got kind of barbells. We got folks on kind of both ends of the spectrum related to their AI usage.
Yeah, no, that was interesting because often we get that bell curve, but
Mhm.
here we have people who are not as many people who are really neutral of like they're putting themselves either in I use it sometimes or I really don't use it very often. So that was interesting. All right, well, we heard me say a word a little while ago, freemium AI, and Matt, you were going to talk about what is that?
Yeah, so I think freemium, and I use that term intentionally as we were developing this presentation to really describe how a lot of us maybe have come to using AI tools. Probably the one being ChatGPT, which we'll take a look at in terms of their overall growth here in the next slide. But really, freemium it's a business model for getting users into the platform. AI is very expensive to deploy. I was looking again background research, right? So I think OpenAI, which is kind of the entity that owns ChatGPT, is kind of scheduled to invest like $1.15 trillion in building up their capacity, right? So this is enormously expensive, and so they're giving away or started to give away access to their tool in the hopes of converting everyone into paid customers later on. And I would distinguish that from maybe a public AI model, which would be more of a utility service, maybe something owned by the government, right? But available as a public good, as opposed to a privately held AI solution that is fundamentally there to kind of make profit. So, all the AI models, and again, we're not going to get into a lot of the maybe the philosophy or the kind of ethical issues around here. But a lot of these AI tools were trained using publicly available data, not always with consent. It was with, so that some of those things are currently winding their way through the court system. Um, and again, I think with that freemium model, it's maybe a little bit flippant, but right, if you're not paying for something, right, then kind of you're the product. Could apply in this case as well, right? So if you don't pay for an AI tool, the content that you're putting into it, the questions you're asking, how you're interacting with it, typically is going to go back in to feed the model to provide ever increasing or escalating information about the usage of the tool and what people are asking it and learning about. So again, so I think that's a helpful model to keep in mind. That freemium model largely focused on converting users to paid customers at some point. And as I mentioned, ChatGPT is, I think, the common example, and this one gets bandied about a lot, right? So ChatGPT was released, I think, officially back in November of 2022. And I think it had the fastest adoption for a million active users, measured in weeks. And so, just in the last several years, right, 2.5 years, now they're up to over 800 million monthly active users or weekly active users in terms of people that are interacting with the system, right? So it's been a phenomenally impressive growth in terms of people going to using and interacting with these tools because they are so compelling, I think. And so, the use and adoption is really driven by the fact that people are finding it helpful. And I think it really is the disruptive technology change, of this time.
So that covers the free versions, which I'm putting in air quotes because they're not free. Um, can you talk a little bit more about enterprise AI?
Yeah. So, a lot of these free, kind of, or these AI tools or large language models that have been developed by these companies or enterprises, again, they typically have the model that they are providing, and then they're either, there's a free way to access that, in which case, there's some, right, you may be giving up some privacy, or the data that you're putting in the system gets used to improve the model, and then distinguish that to enterprise AI, where that same back end model maybe has an intermediary layer that protects the information in there. And I think this is incredibly important for those enterprise customers to ensure that the data that they are putting in the system, right, is private. So in the Microsoft world, that's called Copilot. So Copilot is kind of Microsoft's kind of business integration or business intermediary that kind of helps to protect the information that is interrogated using the ChatGPT language model. The same thing for Gemini, right? So there are free versions. If you just go to kind of Gemini or Copilot right now in your web browser, you will likely go to a kind of a free version or kind of a consumer version where you don't really have those protections, and the information that you put in and the system spits back, right, is kind of recorded and incorporated in using to train the models moving forward, right? And so the enterprise companies of Google and Microsoft really want to provide a paid version where you can get those protections and in turn have more and more people use the service. There are also lots of other AI tools out there. Again, this isn't an exhaustive survey and an evaluation of kind of what's out there and their relative worth, but again, there are dedicated solutions built specifically for AI for nonprofits. So Change Agent AI is one such tool, and then there's other tools, again, innumerable that are available for enterprise subscription. And there's a couple listed here. And again, if you have some of the favorites that you use that you really find valuable, you can go ahead and put that into the chat. And again, I think the important thing with all of these, and this is really the shift that we've seen going from on-prem server infrastructure to kind of these cloud services is right. It's much more important, I think, for individuals to understand and organizations to understand, right, what's in the terms and conditions, right? How can we use the software because we don't really control it at all, right? It's not in the server room down the hall where we can, kind of see it and touch it and kind of get under the hood, right? It's often some far-flung data center somewhere, and apart from the terms and conditions that govern that use, it's really important to investigate, do these terms and conditions align with how I expect a system to use my information? And again, I'll go back, I think Change Agent AI, for example, if you go to their website and look at their terms and conditions, it is very clear. Like, I think they do a good job of saying how they use your data, what rights you have to it, right? And so that's a little bit clearer to review and analyze than looking at the terms and conditions of some of these other big enterprise players that are a lot more obtuse.
Yeah. No, and I know that I have a friend who uses AI to help understand what the terms and conditions mean and like summarize them for them because it's all, can be long documents and trying to pull out what it actually says about how they use your information. Um, so you also were telling me a little bit about these kind of this gradation between the different AI tools and what they do and how autonomous they can be. So can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah, and I think this is really an exciting, evolution of kind of the AI tool set in terms of how we think of them. So, kind of from the timeline perspective, right? So we're talking about, November, kind of 2022. You could ask, ChatGPT some questions, right? It maybe augmented or supplanted your internet search, right? You wanted to find some information, you're asking questions, you're, maybe getting it to review your document, right? So that is generative AI in terms of it being able to kind of analyze and kind of create quote unquote new things. And so now we kind of see that evolving into maybe these three categories, and there maybe could be others. But I think for the purposes of our discussion, right, these are the most typical use cases that we see right now. So the first category that kind of exists on this continuum of how AI solutions are being used is really the assistive technology model. And so, that would be, again, Copilot, right? Microsoft is, as that's their branding term, right? Where it acts as an assistant to you, the human who remains fully in control, right? You're asking it a question, it's providing suggestions or drafts or explanations. You're giving it a prompt, it's providing a response, and then it's done, right? It maybe keeps a history, right? So you can have a conversation that occurs maybe over a few hours or something, but it's, you can't go back and ask it, the analysis that it gave you maybe a couple of days ago, right? So in the assistive world, the human's kind of in charge, and it's maybe helpful to think of that as maybe like a smart intern sitting next to you. So those are the examples that are pretty common, and I think we see most folks taking their dipping their toe in using that assistive model, right? It's relatively low risk, it's easy to adopt. um, the end user is kind of really at the end of the day kind of making a decision about, yes, do I want to accept this information, or am I going to reject it, right? And kind of as the final arbiter of those decisions. So again, that's a great place to get started. In the middle, here is more of like a kind of a scenario based or workflow. And again, I think we're seeing these now be embedded maybe into the tools that you are using. So there could be some predefined scenarios. So it's triggered by an event. There's like certain parameters around when that workflow would trigger, and the mental model is, as opposed to like an intern sitting next to you, you're asking questions, right? It's maybe kind of a smart automation with some judgment about how to make some decisions, right? So for us, we're seeing those tools, kind of crop up in, for example, like IT ticketing systems, right? The AI can look at this, say, oh, like we've seen this before. It looks like the solution might be here, and kind of point to some examples, right? So it's built into a process that exists already, and can help speed up that analysis and reporting. So again, it could be those customer support or kind of case management, kind of support triage. Could be maybe some onboarding or offboarding processes. Could be some compliance reviews, right? So it's really designed to kind of speed maybe some of those routine decisions for regularly occurring processes. And then the final option, or the final example here, is the agentic model. And I guess this might be the new term that you can't have a webinar without talking about agentic AI. But that is more of like an autonomous or semi-autonomous agent, right? That is given a goal, and then the agent kind of figures out how to kind of solve that. And again, you may have good examples of that, right? If you're interacting with customer support, those chats, right? Those are almost, I would say, exclusively agentic AI agents at the start, right? And we're seeing that initial interaction, right, where you can ask it questions, it's going to find a response, it's going to it has a kind of a body of knowledge that it's drawing on, that it knows how to kind of interpret information and respond. And it represents real automation and real efficiency for organizations to to kind of take advantage of. And so that kind of exists, right, as kind of again, it's operating on its own. It's not assistive, right, as kind of that Copilot model where it's like somebody sitting next to you. You can kind of set up this agentic model, and it has some instructions. It has a library of information to draw from. It has some boundaries, and it can basically make decisions and provide answers in and of itself. So again, that can be a good solution for that repetitive operational work. Like if you always have questions, you always need to answer, right? That can be a great way to incorporate that into your organization. Whenever you have pretty clear boundaries over that, and you've invested already in those good processes, good documentations, good information to help feed into that to make good decisions.
And so what can you expect from what you pay?
Yeah.
Nonprofits
So
always want to know.
yeah. So again, if you're looking at this and you're like, hey, like, where do I get started? Right. I think everybody, and we have some slides coming up here, right, should be using the free enterprise protected tier. So again, as opposed to going to kind of free Copilot or free Chatgpt, right, where you might now be seeing ads or the conversations that you're having with the agent are incorporated back into the model. If you go to copilot.microsoft.com or gemini.google.com and sign in with your organizational ID, that becomes protected, right? So now you get the enterprise terms of service as opposed to the kind of freemium or consumer terms of service, and you can basically have those conversations and kind of the everything it should be protected there, right? It's Q&A, right? Enhanced search, help you build this policy, review this email, right? Those kinds of things that you maybe would have looked up, used a Google search, right? Now you're using that kind of natural language queries for the AI. Kind of stepping up from there, right, where we see most organizations moving next would be that Copilot model. Again, so that's going to be about $20 to $30 a month per user. Some of these do have annual terms, right? So you may have to commit to pay for a year to get that pricing. And again, I think kind of coming back to the level of investment, right? This is a very expensive endeavor, and the big players are still burnt. I think this is a money loser at this point, right? They are spending more to build the platform than they are getting in revenue from it at this point. Obviously, that's going to change. So again, Microsoft, right? They discount 75% for some of the Microsoft 365 SKUs. That discounting does not extend into Copilot to the same degree. I think Microsoft is trying to do some of that, but again, it's not discounted, right? So you have to pay the full price. And the benefit you get in these areas would be now instead of just having kind of better web search or kind of interactive web search or analysis of things that you provide it, now Copilot or the Google Gemini can actually analyze documents and information that are within your cloud environment, right? So that it has protected access and it can access everything you can as a user within those platforms. And so now you can whatever, analyze spreadsheets that you have in your organization. You can review policies. You can have it, or like I did, say, "Hey, I'm getting ready to fill out my APR. Analyze all my email that I sent. Analyze all the documents I've created over the past year. Provide a summary of some themes of things that I've been a part of." Right, that's the kind of thing that you can do with those assistive Copilot services. Right? And then the next level up, right, would be kind of in the several $100 a month category where you're looking at kind of Copilot Studio, the Gemini AI Elite, right? And that, is more of the use cases of you're building agents, probably more extensive code development. We see video generation show up in a lot of these more premium tiers. Again, I don't have very much experience in the in the video generation, but I know that again, like video could be an effective method of communicating information, right? Everybody's not reading their emails, right? So maybe video or these short clips are a way to do that. And so some of these services really help lower the barrier to entry or the sophistication that you need to have to really develop compelling online content. So those are kind of the from a basic level, kind of where we see kind of the pricing tiers breakdown. Then I would say, right, this is not something, from a licensing perspective, you don't have to license everybody all at once. You can kind of just license a few people, maybe in a working group, and we talk about that in terms of how to do kind of effective AI adoption at an organization.
We have a quick question in the chat, Matt, about the nominal level there, which is that medium $20 to $30 per user per month. And is
Mhm.
that protecting, is that secure for sensitive data? So then your data is not used to train the model. Your inputs, you can, input like, client data if you had it at your nonprofit.
Yes, that data is, kind of protected from, kind of the enterprise perspective, right? So it's, the system, right, has access to everything that you do as an end user. And so again, organizations from a policy perspective say, hey, like we don't want to put personally identifiable information into the system, right? That could be a policy guardrail that you decide. But again, the enterprise agreements will say this data is yours and you have privacy and control over that, and we're not going to disclose it.
And usually when you're logged in, I've noticed in both Copilot and Gemini, there's a little bar across the bottom that will say you're using your enterprise version and this is not being used for the
Mm-hmm.
model training. So you can also look for that. All right, but you get what you pay for. So can you talk just a little bit more about, because I know in the registration question, somebody said, how do I convince my organization to pay for licenses for people instead of just asking people to go to go out to ChatGPT and ask their questions. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think well, if you're asking those questions, like, I don't know if you, that may be a tough, maybe some tough organizational challenges, but I think in general, right? I mean, and I think this is the equation that these companies are making, right? That you will find, $30 a month worth of value or $200 worth a month of value to pay, to kind of pay for the service because you're going to get that back in efficiency, kind of many times over. So again, uh, the the key difference that these enterprise agreements will give you, right, is the assurance that the data that is provided into the system, is not going to be then kind of disclosed or kind of made available to other users, right, who may find ways to query and elicit information about other organizations or other sensitive topics, um, through some other kind of sophisticated attacks against the AI, kind of engines themselves. And so, you know, making sure that you've got good kind of policies in place that govern how you're using it as an organization, and then providing ongoing training and engagement to say, yeah, this is the right way to use it. Here's how we can use it as an organization. And are all important. And I would say, the other thing, the asterisk here, right, is, uh, you know, I think that, asking the question like, what's the most secure AI tool for me to use, right? Like maybe isn't the right question because I think every tool, could be used insecurely, right? And so I think, um, you know, again, like I said, you may want to, you know, prevent staff from uploading person identifiable information into the AI, even if you have, kind of the enterprise license, right? Because you want to have that extra layer of protection around the data that you have. And so I think being intentional about what that means, for your organization and those guardrails means that your organization needs to, again, understand the data it has, where it lives, who has access to it, how it may be accessed by these other tools, just to kind of provide that level of protection and privacy that, maybe your stakeholders would expect.
Yeah, and you have to, like, when you have a policy, you do have to be constantly reiterating that to staff and understanding what the policy is. Because, like, ChatGPT has as part of the terms and conditions of using the free one that you're not allowed to make misleading information. And everyone knows that that's like what half of the people are using ChatGPT for all day long, basically. So it goes against their terms and conditions, but it's possible for you to do it. And so for your staff also, like there may be something that they can do that as an organization goes against your values or against your policies. So just making sure that people know what the policies are, and you kind of have to do it over and over because the tools are changing so quickly, and someone will say, "Oh, I can use it to do this now," and you have to constantly say, "But that goes against our policies, so please don't use it to do that." And it is very, very hard to put in place automatic restrictions that keep people from doing the things that you don't want them to be doing. So doing a lot of education, I think, is a better way to do it. But go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I appreciated the questions kind of coming in because, and I think, the fact is, right, your staff are already using generative AI tools, and we'll kind of see an example, that next. And also your staff are already interacting with others, generative AI tools. The rush to adopt and incorporate these tools is pretty rampant, and so I think that's another dimension of this new world that we're interacting with is kind of how do we expect to operate ourselves, and how do we want to interact with others. So the word cloud that Carolyn just put up here, is the example of the AI tools used at a 50-person nonprofit organization. Right? There's 121 of them on here. So if you want to start counting, you'll get 121 AI tools. Some of these, right, are tools that individuals at the organization are reaching out to and using, and then others, right, are maybe part of other services that the end users themselves are interacting with, right? Like I said, if you're doing any sort of chat agent, right, it's likely driven by AI. I went to schedule service for my boiler, right, which had some heating problems here, and I talked to a very helpful AI agent that scheduled the whole appointment, and it was pretty good, right? And so these tools are everywhere for nonprofits to use, to plumbing supply companies, right? So everybody's is using these, and I think seeing this here, right, it is shocking maybe, right? Do you know, like, there's all these different names, and what are the AI use policies of these organizations? Do I trust them? There's some big name players here, right? Google, Gemini, and OpenAI and ChatGPT, right? pop up pretty big, but then there's like Common Ninja, like what is that? And Beehive AI, right? So there's a lot of other tools that are that are out there, all trying to make it in this marketplace.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about policies. We're going to have to, I'm looking at the time, Matt, and thinking that we're going to have to kind of speed through a couple of these slides. I had a couple people ask in the chat, are we going to include all of the questions from chat and the Q&A and the answers? And yes, I will. Matt will help answer those and we'll put those in the transcript on our website. Because you're here as an attendee, you'll get an email with a link, but also if you ever want to look back, they're on our website. There's no paywall. So you can look back at all of our old webinars and see the transcripts and questions that people asked. So we're going to speed through quickly Copilot and Gemini, the two big ones.
Mhm.
But as Matt just said, there's a bunch of other ones. Matt, you're going to talk a little bit more about using your company account and, just some how you know that you're using the right one.
Yes. So yeah. So thanks for putting up this graphic because I think it's helpful to actually see what we're talking about here. Um, so on the right-hand side, you can see this is my kind of Edge browser, right? You can see my little picture in the upper right hand. And so whenever I go to copilot.microsoft.com, I'm presented with this login option, right? Where I have an option on the left-hand side to go to work, which they helpfully say is a secure and compliant Copilot integrated with your enterprise account, right? So that's, again, if you have a Microsoft 365 account right now, you can click on that and you will be taken into a protected version of Copilot for basically interacting with the web or through uploading, kind of content or copying and pasting things into that interactive window. Right? If you don't see it, right? So like on the left, if you're just in Copilot, this is an in private window, right? That is not protected. And so the content that gets put in there is probably going to be, whatever. It's going to not have those same terms and conditions applied to it. And it is going to, kind of feedback in the model, right? So that's the top level. So if you're on the enterprise side, and you sign in. Now I have a Copilot license. And so you'll see under my account, right, I have the little tab at the top that says web or work, right? So that's a protected, that's, so if you have no license, you would just see the web tab. If you have a Copilot license, you'll see the work tab, which means that you can then query information that you would have access to as part of your SharePoint OneDrive environment. So again, we have the little enterprise data protection applies to this chat. You can see that I've got some documents that I have accessed previously, right? And so it gives you some prompting there to kind of give you a sense of what is possible through the Copilot. So this is what you would see if you had a Copilot license assigned to your account. Again, so you get the protected web search, but then you also get access to your kind of the organizational data side of things through your account.
And I'll jump in and say, Microsoft, there's like 20 different ways to do this as well. So if you're logged into your Office account, like you're working, and you open a Word document, you'll also see the Copilot icon in the top right. You can click on that and it'll open a little chat window for you to say, hey, can you help me draft this email? Or can you help me do this? The same thing with Excel. The same thing with PowerPoint. As long as you're in your work environment, you're logged into Office 365, all of those little tools are going to have, and you have the Copilot license, the Copilot icon is going to appear there and you'll be able to use it. So that's
Mm-hmm.
Copilot and Microsoft. So the other big player, of course, with a lot of nonprofits is Google Workspace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, kind of a similar thing, right? If you are a Google Workspace customer and you are signed in, by default, you're going to get the enterprise protected version of Gemini. And so you can again kind of do the searching if you have the license, right? So if you've paid for a license of Gemini, then you would get access again to the docs and sheets and presentations that you have. Then I think in addition, there's some neat things that Google has with their Notebook LM, right, where you can initiate research. I think it's really designed to handle research projects. So again, if there's like a specific topic area or something that you want to find more information about, I've used this as well to again gather information about a sector or a certain topic area and kind of be able to build queries and questions around something maybe that if I had the time, like I would spend a few hours doing and researching, but instead, able to kind of feed it some information, provide some parameters, and then get some results back in 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can give it documents from your organization, and then it's only going to look in those documents and give you back the answers. In some cases that maybe you've already vetted. So you have like an
Mm.
FAQ document, and then it'll reference that when it's responding. I think I want to make sure like everyone, I have multiple Google uh, personas and profiles. So just a little word of warning, make sure you're logged into the right one, your work Google uh, profile before using Gemini, because otherwise you'll just be using, random Gemini. Okay, so we're going to go on, I think, a little bit quickly. We have another poll for you. Several people have been asking in the chat and in the question about how do you make sure that people at your organization are doing the things the way you want them to be doing them with AI tools? And so this is a question, do you have AI policies at your organization? The answers are, I don't think so, question mark, don't know. The second answer you can give is we're in the process of creating policies. So you've taken some steps, but maybe not through the process. And the third answer is yes, we have an AI acceptable use policy and our staff use it. And then the fourth answer you can say is this just isn't really applicable to me. So I like to give people that option. So I'm going to share with you the link to the template that's on our website for an AI acceptable use policy. It's just a template. This is one of those things. There's no one size fits all. You're going to have to figure out with your organization where your values are, what people are comfortable with, what you're comfortable with as an organization. So that's, you can't just say, well, here's a policy, go ahead and use it. You're going to have to individualize it. But it looks like we have pretty good response rate. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Sorry, I didn't give you very much warning and share the results just so we stay on track. And Matt, can you see that?
Yes, I can. Great. So majority of folks, 57% are in the process of creating those policies now. So 13% said yes, they have a policy and everybody uses it. So and then there is a quarter of folks that are saying, I don't know, I don't think so. So most folks are right in that process of developing the policy. And again, I think that's what we find, right? Policy typically comes comes last, comes after the fact. It's hard to do, but it is really important to help guide those decisions that help in terms of organizational technology adoption.
Yeah, no, super important and difficult to do because it takes, human brain thought. You're going to have to sit down as a staff with your leadership and make a policy. So, quick, we're going to go through why have a policy, how to get started on nonprofit AI policies. I think I'm going to take this one, Matt, that even just having a one-page outline with some of your principles or your values is better than not having anything. So the person in the chat who said, I wanted to be able to say, no, we don't have a policy. You get on that. See, keep asking the question. You may have a policy that you don't know about. It may be in your employee handbook, like with the other acceptable use policies. So that's not very useful. Make sure that it's out there. AI impacts are a leadership and board level conversation, and all of those decisions need to include that leadership level. All staff can and should be involved in weighing options, learning the dangers, strategizing tasks to try with AI. And that's going to, influence your policy of what you we can do this, we don't want you to do this, all of those sorts of questions. One of the great things and amazing things about nonprofits is we have lots of knowledge about what your mission is throughout the organization. So, doing some projects to get a lot of input from the staff into AI, what you're going to use AI for, what you feel queasy about, is really important. And it's pretty easy to do at a lot of nonprofits. They already have that kind of culture for sharing. You're going to need to look at the ethics and impacts. There's lots of frameworks out there. We have a couple of webinars that we did on ethical frameworks. I'm going to share one in the chat just right now. Um, that was a good framework for thinking about the ethics. This is something that I heard recently, and it just really has, I've been sitting with it, that the having training and doing upskilling is something that nonprofits need to take really seriously. So you may have like professional development, and some people do it some of the time. AI tools is going to be something that we're going to need a lot of training, collaborative training on, and again, those policies as well. So, getting AI literate on how you're using the tools, what you can use them for, how they can impact your mission, different communities you might be able to reach, more effective productivity. All of that is just so important to keep revisiting. And you got to revisit it often because AI is evolving so quickly. It's the typical hockey stick on the statistics model of it's just going up. So yeah, we want to make sure that everyone is taking nonprofit AI training seriously. If you've been doing some training or you have some ideas, please put that in the chat. We'll share it in the transcript. Your programs for training, you can't just have an annual training or a video like, here's how you use AI. It's going to have to be pretty frequent. You probably have champions and power users on your staff already that could you can be asking to help train the others. I'm going to share in the chat a document that I came across recently from the Department of Labor that outlines AI literacy, these different categories of literacy, both for your staff that you have, for staff that you're going to be hiring, kind of what are going to be the standards around being able to use AI. So this document I found is really going to help you get started. And then again, just revisit your training program frequently, get a lot of feedback on what's working. Thank you to everyone who's putting the feedback in the chat right now. I love that. That's really helpful. Um, and yeah, that was our next question, was to share in chat, how are you approaching AI policies and training and what's working? In the interest of time, I'm going to turn it. I'm sorry we ran through that very quickly. These slides will be available on the website. We'll have the transcript in the website as well. We'll be answering all of these questions in the website, on the website in the transcript. But Matt, I wanted to turn it back over to you to kind of summarize how to use AI tools safely. What would you say?
Yeah, I think, so obviously that policy background I think is really important, right? And just to get people in the organization talking together around, yeah, what does it mean for us to use these technology tools, right? And I do think, in the wisdom of my 24 years, working at technology, right? When I first started, the questions that we were having at clients is like, does everybody need an email address? Do we really need internet access at all these locations, right? And so those technology tools have, obviously proved to be very effective. So I think AI, right, is a technology tool that we cannot ignore, and likely, whatever 10 years from now, we'll be saying yes, everybody needs these tools to help them with their job. But I think it also means that it's important for organizations to look at, what is the problem that we're trying to solve. So if it's like, hey, all right, now everybody has Copilot licenses. Okay, so go forth. But if you haven't articulated, well, what is the issue that we're trying to solve, right? Is our obviously things like meeting note taking and action items, right, is a pretty clear use case. That's something I think a lot of people can get on, right? But if the problem you're trying to solve is related to kind of grant application, right, just throwing an AI tool in it may not be the solution that gets you the result that you're looking for. So I think it's important for organizations to really define, hey, like, let's not talk about the technology first. Let's talk about the process and what we're trying to get at before we apply a technology solution to it. So I think that's important. So we're not just kind of looking at the technology first and trying to figure out what we can solve with it. Um, Again, I think we've really advocated and been I think big fans of having a team or a working group to figure those things out, right? Uh, while everybody at the organization may be interested in it, right? Maybe we just need to empower a couple, a few folks to really pilot and explore these issues. I think this is another example, right, where the kind of the fail fast mantra is really helpful, right? You're gonna want to try and explore a lot of different things and kind of figure out what works, what doesn't, what we need to adjust, and doing that with a small group then can feedback best practices for the broader organization will make you, I think, a lot more effective in the long term. um, and then again, there are some questions about this coming in, right? What is currently in use, and define some guardrails, right? So coming back to that previous example, your organization, people are already using these tools. They're using stuff that you've never even heard of. And so having a conversation about use this, not that, what do we want to do? How does this impact our organization if we're using tools that we don't understand the terms and conditions, the data privacy, right? So being able to understand what is currently in use, I think is really important. Because at the end of the day, right, people want to be able to do their job kind of quickly and effectively. And so I think it means working with staff to have creative kind of problem solving and not just blocking all AI, right? Because I think that's probably impractical for most of our organizations. So kind of identifying or understanding what is the problem that they're trying to solve, what are the tools that they're using. Maybe if you do an evaluation and decide, well, that tool actually doesn't have as good of privacy controls as we would like. What is another option that we could use to help address the need, but then also meet our organization's requirements around privacy and data protection? So all of that to say, you got to keep talking and keep iterating, right? This is, rapidly evolving, I think faster than many of us, have the capacity to deal with the change. And so but you got to kind of jump in and keep on it.
I'm going to put up this slide for everyone who can see it. You can book some time with Matt to ask him more questions about cybersecurity, AI and cybersecurity. Also, just put it in the chat file as well. And then again, Matt is answering questions on our Reddit community fairly, once a week or so. So you can ask questions of us there as well. I know that we barely were able to answer the questions today, and I apologize, but we only had an hour, and I feel like, Matt, you did answer a lot of our questions. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go back over our learning objectives. We wanted to learn the difference between enterprise or subscription AI tools and those freemium tools that are free out there. And I think, Matt, you did a good job of just describing you get what you pay for. If you aren't paying for a license, then they are using your information that you're uploading and their outputs to it, and their language, their learning model is using that. So just be aware of that. There are some ways that you can turn that off, even for the freemium versions. So you can
Mm-hmm.
Google those types of options, but it does reduce the functionality of it. So as an organization, you want to make sure that you're investing in those enterprise wide versions. We wanted to go over accessing the Microsoft Copilot and Google Workspace Gemini tools at the organizational level. We had to go through that pretty quickly. Sorry, that was like rapid fire, but it's going to be different. It's going to look different a little bit for different organizations depending on how you're accessing it. Like I said, for Microsoft, there's 20 different ways to do one different thing. So that is one of those things. Talk to your IT people, keep talking about it, ask your questions around the staff. Ask people that are, better at IT than you are, and it may be something that's very unique to your organization as well. Reviewing those IT policy guidelines, thinking about the amount of training that these tools are going to require. They seem so easy. They've been marketed to us as you just ask it your question and it answers you. It's this great, amazing thing that's so easy to use. But what a lot of nonprofits are finding is that there's a lot of upfront time and energy that you want to put into thinking about the challenges, thinking about what you're trying to do with AI, thinking about the ethical issues, thinking about your policy, putting all those things in place. So there is a cost, even though it's quote unquote free to use or low cost if you're just paying, $20 or $30 for a license. It's been very easy to adopt. And I think we're kind of catching up with there's lots of questions that you need to answer as an organization. And then, yeah, I'm sorry, I still had this learning objective on there was understanding unique challenges in AI in cybersecurity when we overshare. I think actually everyone in here is very aware of that difficulty of oversharing your sensitive information with these free tools. So that is heartening to understand. Matt is going to be back here in April doing a webinar on cybersecurity. There will be a ton of cybersecurity and AI in that webinar. So I invite you to come back for that. Hopefully, we'll have a little bit more time to talk about it. For next month, we are going to change gears a little bit and talk about going from being an accidental techie to being an intentional nonprofit tech leader. We have two amazing guests who are going to be with us. Hugo Castro, who is the author of the Accidental Techie newsletter on LinkedIn, a great friend of Community IT, a long friend of ours, and Gozi Egbuonu, who is also just a long-standing friend of ours and who actually moved through being the accidental techie to now being a technologist. So she's going to talk about her lived experience. They're going to talk about ways to move from being the person who's always helping with IT for free at your organization to becoming that strategic and intentional nonprofit tech leader. So I invite you to come back for that. That is at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on Wednesday, March 25th, a month from today. Please don't forget as you're leaving today to take our short survey. One lucky winner chosen at random will receive a $25 gift certificate for helping us learn more about how we're doing. And then also join us on Reddit r/, nonprofit IT management for more Q&A with Matt for the next 30 minutes or so. It's kind of hard for me to take the questions from the chat and put them in the Reddit chat, so I apologize for that, but I will be loading them up over the next couple of days. So if your question didn't get answered and you're on Reddit, please join us there. We'll love to get your answer back to you, or check back in the transcript in a week or two, and we're going to add on all of the questions that we didn't get to and Matt's answers to those. And it's going to be a lot. So it may be 2 weeks before we get that up there, but please come back, and we just appreciate your time so much today. Thank you everyone who joined us. I hope these resources were helpful to you. Matt, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks.
Feel
We've
like it
covered a
was a
lot, and
whirlwind.
I'm here. I'm here responding to questions on Reddit. So yeah, another plug to kind of hop over there and ask if we didn't get to something. There's a lot of good questions. I don't know that I have answers for
Exactly.
all of them, but I think it's a good conversation to have.
That's one of the things for AI is that none of us are experts. If you have a consultant or a company that's telling you they know everything about AI, they are lying. Because maybe they knew it yesterday, but it's different today. That's for sure. We went over a little bit here. I appreciate everyone who's still with us. Thank you again so much, Matt. Thank you everyone who is with us on the website, on the webinar. Your time is a gift. We appreciate it, and we'll see you over on Reddit or next month back at our next webinar. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.
Great. Thanks, Carolyn. See ya.